The Rebbe's asked the question, if a person increases their giving, then the person will receive more of the surrounding light, and it will become more inner light. And the Rebbe answers yes. This structure that we're seeing here in the drawing, in number 4, this is a zivug da'aka'ah. Now, if the person will increase their desire to give, so more aspects of the surrounding light will be able to come inside and become inner light. That's correct. Couldn't hear the question here, but the Rebbe answers it. On Shabbat, we're commanded to eat, so we need to enjoy the eating. But also on Shabbat, we don't fall on the entire meal and eat like pigs. That's simple. The Rebbe's asked the question. The Rebbe says it's bringing an idea from Chabad. In Chabad, it says there's an idea called ikafia. What's ikafia? To force our desire. The Rebbe says the masach is this idea of ikafia. Meaning that even though I want, I force myself to not make use of my desire to receive. The material of the masach, the Zohar says the material of the masach is having awe of God. The more that we have a greater understanding of the exaltedness of God, whose presence we are in, I suggest sometimes to go out. Each one where they're living. There's people that live in the city, people that live in villages. But advice that the Rambam gives is to go outside and to look. Here in Kiryat Yarim, we see beautiful mountains. The person is nothing next to them. And at night we see here amazing stars. When a person looks at all this, we feel ourselves nothing in relation to all the universe. When we're living in the city, so there are other ways we can depict to ourselves the greatness of God. Person feels in relation to the whole universe nothing. So it's very good for a person to realize that we're nothing in relation to the universe, in order that we can realize who we're talking about here, whose presence we're in. Who are we talking about? That who are we in relation to God? Sometimes it's funny that we have any existence. But these depictions give to us the ability to do ikafia, to make a masach on ourselves. Students asking, the sages say that thinking about doing a misdeed is more stringent than a misdeed. So he's asking if this is connected to this drawing. If we say that in the head, he hasn't made a good planning, is that worse than failing in the putting into action? The Rebbe says yes, you could say that. It's a question if this is a process of being able to overcome, and the Rebbe says yes. The Rebbe's asked, what are the arrows in the drawing that are above? Between the returning light that clothes and the inner light. The Rebbe says, I'll explain what these arrows are. Listen well. In a general way, there's 10 sefirot, from Keter to Malchut. The highest sefirah is Keter. The lowest sefirah is Malchut. Now, what is above and what's low? Where is the great desire to receive? And where is the small desire to receive? In Keter, it's the smallest desire to receive. And in Malchut, it's the maximum desire to receive. Like we learned in number 5. Now, when the created being wants to overcome and to give, where does the created being need to activate more force? Where there's a big desire to receive, or where there's a small desire to receive? Clearly needs to make stronger force where there's a big desire to receive. So in the system of returning light, we call the upper aspect Keter and the lowest aspect Malchut. But actually, this is opposite. Why is it opposite? Because we want to hint to this whole system of the returning light clothing is the system of the desire to give. So the big power of giving, that's called Keter, we need to activate in relation to the Malchut, where there is the big desire to receive. The smallest force of giving, which is the Malchut, we need to activate in relation to the Keter, which there is the smallest desire to receive. That's what we see from left to right. The big desire to give, I need to activate on that which has the biggest desire to receive. That's the Malchut. And therefore, Keter of returning light is clothing on the Malchut of the direct light. Desire to give, the smallest desire to give, I need to activate where there's the smallest desire to receive. And therefore the Malchut of the returning light, which is the smallest desire to give, clothes on the Keter of the direct light. That's the explanation. It's also the explanation for drawing number 3, on the opposite between the direct light and the returning light. The Rebbe's asked if the spiritual practices of not doing something relate to the concept of masach, and the Rebbe says yes. Even though I want something, it's forbidden. And the spiritual practices of doing things relate to the returning light. Because deflecting the light is going away from the bad, and the returning light is doing good. All of the positive mitzvahs are rooted in the returning light. Awe of God is connected to making the masach, and love of God is connected to the returning light. The Rebbe's asked if the verse from the sages to nullify your will before God's will is the concept of the masach. The Rebbe says yes. The Rebbe's asked, what do we call the situation where a person's able to fix themselves to be able to receive all of the surrounding light as inner light? What is this called? The Rebbe says it's called Gamara Tikkun, the final fixing. The Rebbe's asked if the light that the fixed vessel is able to experience is delineated as 10%, because the returning light is divided into the 10 levels, and the Rebbe says yes. The student says that he understands this in terms of our physical reality, that we need to make a masach on our physical desire to receive physical pleasure. The Rebbe says, first of all, the way we do this is by keeping the halacha, the spiritual laws. All the spiritual laws are about making a masach and returning light. That's the ABCs of Judaism. All of the halachot are like this, and that's why it's important to learn halacha. I wake up in the morning, I need to wash my hands. I don't feel like washing my hands, especially in the winter, but I need to. So I need to make a masach on what I want to do and wash my hands. All of Judaism is built in this way. For example, I have a big desire to eat. I'm hungry. The Rambam comes and says that we always need to leave 1/3 of our stomach empty. To only eat 2/3. To leave 1/3 empty. Never to fill ourselves all the way. So also here, I need to eat, but I need to stop at a particular level. Even though I want to eat more, I need to stop. Not to give the body. There's 1,001 examples. I want to eat. There's something I'm not sure if it's kosher or not kosher. So my desire to receive says, that's kosher. There's some stamp on it. All sorts of excuses. But I need to make a masach on my desire to receive and not eat. And there's 1,001 examples. Somebody hurts me, so I want to take revenge on them. I very much want to. So I need to make a masach and to not take revenge. All of the halachot are exercises in making masachim. And they're exercises in making returning light. In spirituality now, in the stage where we are, we don't need to make masachim. The opposite. In spirituality, we want to now develop our desire to receive as much as possible. As much as possible. Instead of yearning for material matters, to be yearning to have love for the other. To be yearning for God. So in spirituality, I'm saying again, for now, we don't want to make masachim. All of the masachim and all of the work here needs to be in materiality, in physicality. This is the idea of having tara in marital relations. A person always wants, but the Torah says no. There's a minimum amount of time that needs to be distant, and the minimum is 12 days. But a person wants, but the Torah says no. You have to make a masach on your desire. So I'm showing first of all the idea of keeping the halachot. The halachot is the ABCs of making masachim. If we're not working the way of the halachot, the spiritual laws, everyone's just doing what they think, what they want, what seems to them. So that's being an astronaut. The Torah is giving us a progression of masachim. Now, if a person keeps the masachim and separates from what they're desiring, then through this they attain returning light, desire to give. That's how the system works. The Creator created a complete system, and that's how it works. This is what it says in the Gemara, that the Torah stands for somebody who kills themselves. So people ask, how could it stand for someone that kills themselves? The answer is, killing oneself means killing one's ego, meaning the desire to receive. A person kills their desire to receive, separates from their desire to receive. Then they come to true life. What's true life? Returning light. Returning light attaches us to God. Desire to give attaches us to God, so we attain the real life. Now the Rebbe says he understands the question. To give is always good. It's always good to give. Afterwards, we need to work on our pride. The Rebbe says he's asked that if somebody gives, the right person able to fault the pride. If everybody's giving 100 shekels and the person gives 150 shekels, they could have pride. The Rebbe says that's why we have the spiritual work of emunah, of belief. The work of emunah, that it's not me and my own ability that gives me to be able to do anything. But God is giving me the power for everything. And then we don't have pride. There's a student that asked the Rebbe a question twice. The Rebbe didn't answer, so the student says that they're making a masach on their desire to receive an answer. What did she ask? The question was, if I'm giving pleasure to God, then isn't God receiving? But this is a question that we talked about a lot. There's a difference between God's essence that we don't speak about at all, between God from the perspective of God desiring to give goodness to creation. The Baal HaSulam says that God wants us to depict as though God is receiving from us. Why? In order that we're able to come to a state of giving. If we depict to ourselves a wall, to a wall we can't give anything. So for our own good and for our own development, we need to depict to ourselves God as a parent yearning for God's children to do what God wants. And when we do what God wants, to imagine that this gives pleasure to God. So God wants us to depict this for our own good, in order that we'll have the strength of giving. And from this fuel of depicting to ourselves that we're causing pleasantness to God, ruler of the world, gives us the power to do the work of the Masach and the returning light. The Rebbe's asked if we need to make a Masach even on things that are permitted. The Rebbe says, first of all, we have the halachot, the spiritual laws. And I suggest from the depth of my heart that for everybody, men and women, someone who's serious, who wants to attain spiritual attainments, needs to learn the halachot, the spiritual laws. We have here lessons on the halachot. Take advantage of them. Because the halachot are set to give us a framework of life, of making a masach and returning light. The mitzvot of what not to do is making a masach. The mitzvot of things to do is the returning light. Now beyond this, our sages say, make yourself also holy in what's permitted to you. So here there's already not measurements. Each person, according to their emunah, their belief, and their desire to attach to God, can make themselves holy even in aspects that are permitted. But here there's no set measurements. This is that a person from their own good desire decides. For example, it says to call Shabbat pleasure. So a person can decide, on Shabbat there's a spiritual practice to have pleasure in eating. So the person buys all the best foods. Makes steaks on the barbecue. Buys ducks and lambs and every kind of food. Sits all of Shabbat, eating all the foods. Makes the gluttony of the week on Shabbat. But that's not the point. The Rebbe's asked about the spiritual desire to receive that we need to increase. The Rebbe says, yes, we need to increase it. How do we increase it? He said the eye sees and the heart desires. We need to find ways in order to increase the importance of those that are surrounding us, of other people and God. To begin to yearn, to connect to them. The more that we're depicting the exaltedness of God, the more that we want to connect to God. This is the progression of the stage we're in. I'm going to end here so we can pray the afternoon prayer. היום בשעה 6 בעזרת בלימוד בזוהר הקדוש, מחר יום שישי מתן תורה ב10 ושוב שיעור בפתיחה ב6. The Rebbe is giving the hours of the other lessons. כמובן נמשיך להשתמש בסרטוטים. And we'll continue to make use of these drawings. 4 סרטוטים למספר אותם ולהשתמש בהם. Now we have 4 drawings to number them. ויש הרבה סרטוטים. Because there's a lot of drawings coming. הרבה. A lot. זה רק ההתחלה. This is just the beginning. So I can set a folder for the drawings. The Rebbe says goodbye to everybody.